I thought it would be just another lovely weekend. It was my youngest daughter's birthday, and instead of a big party, I gave her some money and let her roam the local farmer's market. Just us girls, enjoying a peaceful morning. We'd been through so much already. My ex-husband passed away last year in a tragic accident. It should have ended there, but no. After his death, secrets surfaced. He had 2 sons with another woman. She died too, leaving behind 2 orphaned boys and a mountain of drama. His parents, my ex-in-laws, blamed me. They tried to take my daughters from me. And now, somehow, they wanted to move in with us? That morning at the market should have been joyful, but what happened next changed everything. Before we dive deeper, if you're someone who values truth, family, and justice, hit that subscribe button. Because this story, it's only getting started. The day started with sunlight streaming through the windows, and my daughters laughing over breakfast. My youngest, now 15, was practically glowing. Even though her party was later in the month, I wanted her to feel special today. So I handed her some cash and told her, "Go wild at the market. Get whatever sweets your heart desires." We've always loved the weekend market. It's a little slice of calm in our chaotic lives. Fresh produce, homemade jams, artisan breads. We've been going there for years. It felt like home. I thought just for today, we could forget about the drama, the grief, and the betrayal that had haunted us for the past year. But that sense of peace didn't last. After about an hour, I realized I hadn't seen my youngest in a while. She usually texted me updates or sent pictures of the things she found. Just as I reached for my phone to call her, it started ringing. Her name popped up on the screen. "Mom!" she cried, her voice shaking. "There are these women. They're yelling at me." My heart dropped. I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my eldest daughter's hand and we ran. We found her near the honey stand, cornered by 6 older women. Some of their faces I recognized, women from my ex-in-law's church. Their voices were loud, harsh, accusing. They were berating my daughter on her birthday, calling her unchristian, saying she was heartless for ignoring her grandparents and not caring for her poor orphaned brothers. Those boys, the children my husband fathered during his affair. The same children my daughters learned about when they found his messages, hidden photos, and the truth that shattered our family. My girls weren't just angry, they were hurt, traumatized. And these women? They had no right to guilt them for that. I stepped in immediately, placing myself between my daughter and the group. "You've said enough," I snapped. "She's a child, my child." My eldest, bless her heart, guided her sister away while I stayed back to deal with the crowd. Some of the women kept shouting, accusing me of being a failure as a wife and mother. One even had the gall to say, "You should obey your in-laws like a good Christian woman." That's when I knew. They weren't here by accident. This was coordinated. This was about power, about control, and about continuing a narrative that painted me as the villain and my ex-in-laws as the saints. Security was called. We were asked to leave the market. I didn't argue. I just wanted my daughters safe. As we walked to the car, those women followed us, muttering insults, keeping their eyes sharp like hawks circling prey. I kept my head high, but my hands were trembling on the steering wheel as we pulled away. That night, once the girls were tucked in, I logged into Facebook. A friend from that same church messaged me. He'd seen what happened and wanted to check in. After apologizing for the scene, he told me something shocking. Apparently, my ex-mother-in-law had posted a long emotional story in the church's private group. In it, she painted us as monsters. She claimed we were leaving her and her husband homeless and alone, that we'd stolen their son's money, that we refused to take in the orphaned boys, that my daughters, her granddaughters, refused to speak to her. What she didn't mention, of course, was the cheating, the affair, the years of silence and manipulation, or the fact that those orphaned boys were the result of betrayal, not adoption. She even went as far as saying the other woman was our surrogate because I couldn't have more children, and that I rejected the boys because they were male. It was vile, disgusting. And sadly, some people believed it. I sat there staring at the screen, numb. Then, something inside me snapped. For months, I'd kept quiet. Out of dignity, out of grief, out of the hope that the drama would die down. But that post? That lie? That attack on my daughters? It was time to fight back, and I had the ammunition. During the divorce proceedings, cut short by my ex's sudden death, I had collected every piece of evidence. Photos of him with his mistress, screenshots of messages, some between him and her, others between him and his parents, where they openly discussed keeping the affair quiet. Messages where they mocked me, voicemails where they threatened to take my daughters, emails calling my girls bastards. One, just 2 days after the funeral, even blamed my daughters for his death, because they were the ones who told me about the affair. I wasn't going to post it online. No, that would be too easy, too messy. Instead, I printed everything out, on high-quality paper. I made personalized binders, each one styled to look like the church's hymn books. The cover was subtle, but the inside? The first page showed a full-color photo of my ex and his mistress kissing on our couch. Their faces crystal clear. Underneath, in bold letters, his name and her name, a love story. I filled the rest with proof, page after page of betrayal. And early the next Sunday, I went to the church. I placed those binders right where they stored the extra songbooks. What happened next? Well, let's just say the gossip wheel started spinning faster than ever. By Monday, the church's Facebook group exploded. People were shocked, disgusted. The pastor had to step in and calm things down. Some still judged me for the divorce, of course, but they understood. I wasn't the Jezebel they were told I was. I was a woman betrayed, trying to protect her children. And my ex-in-laws? They were humiliated, quiet, and eventually gone. But this story isn't over yet, because just when I thought we could move on, the past found another way to crawl back in. After the church incident, things were strangely quiet for a few days. The Facebook group was still buzzing, but my phone had stopped ringing. No angry texts, no fake apologies, just silence. But I've learned something in the last year. When it comes to my ex-in-laws, silence is never peace. It's strategy. A week after the binders dropped at church, a certified letter arrived at my door. The envelope was thick, the kind that makes your stomach twist just holding it. It was from their lawyer. They were contesting my daughter's inheritance. Apparently, in his will, my ex-husband named his parents, not his children, as the primary beneficiaries of his personal bank account and his life insurance policy. I stared at the page, reading it over and over, hoping I had missed something. But no, it was clear. His parents were set to receive nearly everything. Now, I'm not naive. I know wills can be changed. I know people make bad choices, especially when they think they have time. But what broke me wasn't just the contents of the will. It was the fact that he had told me, directly to my face, that he had made our daughters the beneficiaries. He lied. Even in death, he was still lying. I took a deep breath and called our family lawyer. She's a tough, no-nonsense woman who's seen more family chaos than most judges. I explained everything, sent her a copy of the will, and asked the question that had been sitting in my chest like a rock. Is there anything we can do? There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then she said, "Actually, yes. Because here's the thing. My ex and I were still legally married when he died. The divorce was in progress, but not finalized. And in our state, if a person dies mid-divorce without updating their will or properly filing certain paperwork, the surviving spouse, me, still has legal standing to contest the will, especially if minors are involved and potentially being left out." I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a while: hope. We gathered every document. The text messages where he said he had updated the beneficiaries, his emails to me about taking care of the girls, even voice recordings I had saved from mediation. I had more than enough to raise questions about his intentions, and even more to raise questions about his parents' involvement in influencing those decisions. And let me tell you, once we started digging, things got messy fast. Turns out, in the months leading up to his death, his mother had been heavily involved in managing his affairs, both personal and financial. She was the one who helped him fill out the life insurance paperwork. She even signed as a witness. That might sound innocent, but in legal terms, it was a red flag the size of Texas. Conflict of interest, potential coercion, possible fraud. Our lawyer filed a formal challenge to the will, and that's when the gloves came off. Their attorney tried everything, claimed I was just a bitter ex-wife, that I was trying to steal from grieving grandparents, that I had turned my daughters against their family. But what they didn't count on, what they never understood, was that this wasn't about money for me. It was about justice, about truth, about my girls who had already lost enough. We submitted every piece of evidence to the court, the harassment, the binders, the emails, and yes, the fact that they called my daughters bastards and blamed them for their father's death. The judge was not impressed. During the hearing, their lawyer tried to paint my ex-mother-in-law as a frail, grieving woman who only wanted to honor her son's wishes. But then we showed the judge a message she sent just 3 weeks after the funeral. Your daughters are selfish brats. They don't deserve a dime. We'll make sure of it. The courtroom was silent, and that's when something shifted. The judge leaned back, folded his hands, and looked directly at my ex-in-laws. You're telling me you think it's appropriate, he said slowly, to call your granddaughters names, try to take custody from their mother, move into their home, and still expect to inherit everything? They didn't have an answer. The judge ordered a full review of the will and froze the assets until the matter could be resolved. For the first time in months, I felt like we were being seen, heard, protected. When we left the courtroom, my daughters held my hands so tight it almost hurt, but I didn't mind. It reminded me of when they were little, when they thought I could fix anything with a hug and a promise. Now they're older. They know the world isn't fair. But maybe, just maybe, they're learning that it can be fought. Later that night, my oldest daughter came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. She didn't say anything at first, just leaned against the counter, watching me. Then she whispered, "Thanks for fighting for us, Mom." I turned around, drying my hands, and looked at her. "I'll always fight for you," I said. "Even when it's hard, even when it's messy. That's what moms do." She smiled, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were healing. Slowly, piece by piece. But the fight isn't over. The next court date is approaching. And my ex-in-laws? They're getting desperate. They're pulling out tricks I never saw coming. And trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. I thought things had reached their peak with the court case, the binders, and the dramatic church fallout. I thought my ex-in-laws had shown their full hand. But I was wrong. A week before the next court date, I got a call from our lawyer. Her tone was calm, but I could hear a certain tension in her voice. "They've filed a motion," she said. "A new claim. And it's unexpected." I braced myself. "They're claiming that your daughters aren't biologically your ex-husband's children." I froze. "That's not possible," I said, my voice cold and flat. "They look just like him." "I know," she replied. "It's a desperate move. But they've submitted a request to the court to mandate a DNA test on your daughters." I couldn't breathe. My heart raced. This wasn't just legal strategy. This was an attack. On me, on my girls, on our family. "They're trying to disinherit your daughters entirely," she added. "If they can convince the court they aren't legitimate heirs, they get everything by default." I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the floor. My daughters were in the other room, laughing at some video together, completely unaware of what was unfolding behind the scenes. I had to protect them, again. That night, I told them everything. I didn't want to, but I had to. They deserved the truth, and they deserved to choose. I explained the situation gently, that their grandparents were claiming they weren't their father's children, that they were trying to strip them of what little connection they had left to him, that we might need to do DNA tests to prove otherwise. My youngest burst into tears. Do they hate us that much? She asked, her voice trembling. I pulled her close. They don't know how to love the right way, I said. But I do. And I will never let them hurt you without a fight. My oldest, always so strong, sat in silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. If they want proof, give it to them. Let's end this. We moved quickly. The tests were done within days, and just like we knew they would, the results came back. Both girls were without a doubt his biological children. The court rejected the motion instantly. It was a victory, yes, but it came at a cost. My daughters were devastated, their trust shattered even further. And just when we thought it couldn't get worse, the next blow came. A leak. Someone, most likely from the in-laws' side, had sent anonymous copies of our court filings to a local gossip site, including screenshots of the DNA request. The story exploded online. The headline was brutal. Dead man's family claims kids aren't his. Legal war erupts over inheritance. I'll never forget the look on my daughters' faces when they saw it. My youngest covered her mouth. My oldest turned white. This is disgusting, she whispered. We stayed off social media for days. I contacted the site, threatening legal action. They removed the story, but the damage was done. Whispers were everywhere. But here's what they didn't expect. That same gossip story? It brought forward a new witness. I got a message from a woman named Karen. No joke. But this Karen was no stereotype. She was sharp, direct, and had been a secretary at the law firm where my ex-husband had updated his will. She said she saw everything. According to her, my ex-mother-in-law had pushed him hard to change the beneficiaries. She had sat in the waiting room during the whole meeting, and afterwards, she overheard a heated argument between the lawyer and one of the paralegals. Apparently, the lawyer had felt pressured to process the change, even though my ex seemed unsure. He looked nervous, Karen said, almost like he regretted it the moment it was done. She agreed to testify, and that changed everything. In our next court session, our lawyer presented the DNA results, the harassment records, and now, Karen's testimony. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully. He turned to my ex-in-laws, his voice steady. Your actions, both past and present, show a pattern of manipulation, harassment, and an ongoing attempt to undermine the legal rights of these girls. You have not only failed to act in their best interests, you've actively harmed them. He ruled in our favor. My daughters were officially named as the rightful heirs. The funds from the life insurance and bank accounts were to be transferred into a trust, with me as their guardian until they came of age. It was over, but the pain lingered. After the hearing, we sat in the parking lot. None of us spoke for a while. Then my youngest turned to me and asked, "Can we just be done with them now?" I nodded. "Yes," I said softly. "We're done." And we were. A few weeks later, we moved to a new house. Not far away, but far enough. A fresh start. No memories in the walls, no ghosts in the corners. My daughters are still healing. They still see their therapist. We still talk, cry, laugh. We're a work in progress, but we're moving forward. As for my ex-in-laws, last I heard, they moved out of town. Their church shunned them, their reputation shattered, their lies exposed. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, wondering if they'll come back. But then I remember. They lost, not just in court, but in life. Because love wins, truth wins, and when you fight for your children with everything you have, you win too. It had been 3 peaceful months since the final court hearing. The girls were adjusting well to the new house, and the ghost of their father's betrayal had finally begun to fade into something that resembled distant memory rather than a fresh wound. I started planting a small vegetable garden in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes, herbs, and bell peppers. Something about working with my hands gave me peace. Then, one Friday morning, as I was sorting the mail, I saw it. A plain white envelope. No return address. Handwritten. At first glance, I thought it might be a neighbor or a thank you note. But the handwriting, it looked oddly familiar. When I opened it, a single sheet of paper slid out, and my heart stopped. It was a letter from the older of the two boys. My ex is a fair children. I read it twice before I could fully absorb what it said. Dear Miss Carter, my name is Ethan. I'm 11 years old now. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I found out about you from my grandma. She said mean things, but I didn't believe her. I just want to know the truth. I don't remember my mom or dad much. I don't have any photos of them. I don't know what they were like, but I know you were married to my dad, and that your girls are my sisters. I'm not asking for money or anything. I just want to know if they were good people. If I look like my dad. If you have a picture of him smiling, please don't be mad. I'm sorry if I made things worse. Ethan. I sat in stunned silence. I hadn't heard anything about the boys since the court battle ended. We knew they'd been placed with a distant cousin of my ex, someone none of us had ever met. I assumed they'd stay far away from us. But Ethan, he wasn't asking for anything, just the truth. And despite everything, despite the betrayal, the chaos, the destruction, he was still just a child. That evening, I sat my girls down. I showed them the letter. They were quiet for a long time. Then my oldest said, "It's not his fault." My youngest nodded. "We can't blame him for what Dad and Grandma did." We agreed to respond, cautiously, kindly, carefully. I helped them write a letter back. We kept it simple, honest. We told Ethan a little about his father, both the good and the bad. We explained it neat, while things had been painful, he deserved the truth, not more silence. We even included a few photos, one of their dad holding both girls when they were babies, another of him at the beach, laughing, before everything fell apart. We mailed it with no expectations. A week passed, then two. Then, one evening, I got a phone call. The number was unfamiliar. I hesitated, but answered. It was the cousin, Laura, the woman now caring for Ethan and his younger brother. "Hi," she said softly. "I hope this isn't too forward, but I wanted to thank you for responding to Ethan's letter." I felt relief and tension at the same time. "He seems like a good kid." "He is," she replied. "He's smart and sensitive, and he's been asking about his father for a while. I tried to answer what I could, but I wasn't close to your ex-husband. I didn't expect him to write to you. He found your name on some old court papers I accidentally left out." "That's okay," I said. "I'm glad he reached out." She hesitated. "Look, I know what your family's been through. I've heard the stories, some from the church, some from the court files. I just want you to know, I'm not part of that mess. I'm just trying to raise these boys right." I believed her. Her voice was steady but weary, like someone who never signed up for this responsibility, but accepted it with quiet strength. "Do you think," she continued, "your girls might want to meet Ethan someday? Not now, but maybe down the line?" I looked over at my daughters, sitting on the couch, curled up in a blanket, watching an old Disney movie. "I think that's not off the table," I replied, "but only if they choose it, in their time." "I understand," she said, "and thank you for not shutting the door." When I hung up, I didn't feel overwhelmed like I had in the past. I felt at peace. Because for the first time since my ex died, this wasn't about revenge or custody battles or courtrooms. It was about kids, all of them, and healing. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and the girls exchanged a few more letters, just small things, favorite movies, stories from school, even drawings. They weren't ready to meet in person, and that was okay. They were building something slowly, something theirs. One afternoon, my youngest taped one of Ethan's letters to her bedroom wall, a doodle of a robot holding a balloon. "He's funny," she said. "I didn't think he would be." And I smiled, because for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw hope in her eyes. As for me, I've let go of the rage, of the bitterness. I still have the binders. I keep them locked away, not as weapons, but as reminders, that I stood up, that I protected my girls, that truth matters. The garden out back is thriving now. Tomatoes just started ripening. My youngest named one of the pepper plants Gerald. I don't know why, She just liked the name. Life isn't perfect, but it's honest. And for that, I'm grateful. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of rain that made everything outside look like a watercolor painting. Gray skies, blurred trees, and puddles dancing with ripples. I had just settled in with a cup of tea when the doorbell rang. Unexpected visitors were rare, especially on a weekday, especially in this weather. I dried my hands on a towel and made my way to the front door. Through the frosted glass, I could see a figure, tall, holding an umbrella, wearing a long coat. I opened the door, and my heart skipped a beat. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked. His voice was deep, calm, his expression serious, but not unkind. He looked to be in his early 50s, salt and pepper hair. A leather satchel hung from his shoulder. "Yes," I replied, cautious. He held out a business card. James Holloway Estate Attorney, Holloway and Beckett, LLP. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," he said, "but I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your old number didn't work, and mail I sent was returned." I gestured him inside. The girls were upstairs, and something about this man told me he wasn't here to cause harm. "Is this about my ex-husband?" I asked once we were seated. He nodded slowly. "Yes, but not in the way you might think." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. He opened his satchel and pulled out a thick manila folder. "I was your ex-husband's legal counsel, not for the divorce, but for a separate, private matter he entrusted me with before he passed." He laid the folder on the coffee table. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, in my ex's unmistakable scrawl, and on the first page, just 3 words: "If I'm gone." I stared at it for a moment before unfolding it. "Elena, if you're reading this, then I've passed, and I deserve whatever bitterness you feel. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know. I didn't mean for it to end this way. I messed up. I made choices that tore our family apart. I betrayed you, our vows, and worst of all, I hurt the girls. But I want to try, just once, to set something right. There's a trust, not from my main account. You wouldn't have known about it. It's under a different name." I put it together quietly, piece by piece, over the last year. "It's for the girls, not for guilt, not to buy redemption, but because they deserve something better than the mess I left behind. It's not much, but it's clean. No strings, no lies. James will walk you through everything. Tell the girls I loved them, even if I didn't deserve them. Jason." I put the letter down, my throat tight. Mr. Holloway gave me a moment before speaking. "He started the trust 8 months before the accident," he explained. "He kept it separate from his other finances, probably because he didn't want anyone, especially his parents, knowing about it." "How much?" I asked, still stunned. $75,000, he said. "It's not life-changing, but enough to help with college, therapy, or whatever you think is best." I leaned back, silent. Not out of anger or relief, just exhaustion. All this time, I thought I knew the full story. I thought there was nothing left that could surprise me. But here was my ex-husband, from beyond the grave, doing something good. Not to erase the past, but maybe to soften it. I called the girls downstairs. They listened as I explained. I handed them the letter. They read it together, sitting shoulder to shoulder on the couch. My youngest didn't say a word. My oldest wiped her eyes. Later that night, she came into my room. "Mom," she said quietly, "I don't forgive him. Not completely. But it's weird. Reading that letter, it made him feel like a person again, not just the villain in our story." I nodded. "Sometimes people are both." She sat beside me. "What should we do with the trust?" "That's up to you girls," I said. "We'll talk about it. Maybe a college fund, maybe something fun, maybe both." We didn't make any big decisions that night, but the weight in the air, just a little of it, lifted. A week later, Mr. Holloway returned with the paperwork. We signed, notarized, and officially received the trust. And with that, the final chapter of my ex's legacy closed. Not in fire and fury, but in something strangely peaceful. Ethan continued writing. My girls kept responding. Slowly, the distance between half-siblings and maybe someday family grew smaller. And the church? Well, after the truth spread, the noise faded. The pastor reached out once more, this time genuinely apologetic. We declined the invitation to return, but we wished them well. One evening, as the girls and I were planting new flowers in the front yard, my youngest turned to me. "Do you think Dad really meant what he wrote?" she asked. "I think," I said, "he meant it in the only way he knew how. And sometimes, that has to be enough." We stood there for a moment, hands covered in dirt, hearts still healing. It had been a long road, one filled with betrayal, anger, grief, and confusion. But also letters, apologies, growth, and something that looked a lot like hope. Life doesn't always give us neat endings. Sometimes we're left picking up the pieces, one painful truth at a time. But in those moments, when we choose honesty, protect our children, and stand up for what's right, we find a new kind of strength. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of your own path through heartbreak and healing, you're not alone. Please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. Your support helps more people find these stories and maybe a little piece of their own. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.